Alright friends, welcome to Mining Positivity with PJ. It feels like it's been a while, but guys, we are here in our brand new series, Dungeon Wars. Welcome to Dungeon Wars. So basically, what is this? Well, it's where we're going to be talking about how to build a custom dungeon using command blocks in Minecraft to play with your friends and challenge them to your own custom maps and things like that. We're going to be spending probably a month or two doing this, and we're going to be learning about command blocks and building ideas and all kinds of different things. I have a couple goals for this series. Number one is that we will cover all the basics of command block building, and we'll kind of talk about like how to generate structures and how to push characters where you need them to be and things like that. Number two is that this is going to be a fun challenge between me and my friend Stoic Epoch, and we're going to be creating our own dungeons. We were just inside that monstrosity right there, but we're going to be creating our own dungeons and challenging each other to see if we can beat it. He will not be watching this series until he's actually played some of this. The time at which this airs and the time in which it was actually created will probably be off a bit, but the idea is once the dungeon's complete, we will play each other's dungeons and then see how far we can make it. And so what we're going to do is just talk about, like, how do you build something like this? This seems crazy, and it can seem overwhelming. Like, what are all these command blocks? What are they doing? What is this? It just seems kind of nutty. So we're going to go step by step through this series on how to build a dungeon. All I've built is the very beginning of the dungeon, and I built the very first room that you'll enter once you go through that door into the dungeon. So I want to talk about some examples. Well, first, let's just look at it, right? So you can actually set world spawn, which I did. I set world spawn here. So if you were to join this game on adventure mode, you would join in, and I set it to where you're facing this direction, so the player gets kind of disorientated, right? Where am I? And they come out into this dark, creepy room. Maybe they don't even want to go in here, but they can't run in here. They have to struggle their way through all these spider webs. And I feel like the spider webs set the tone of what this dungeon's going to be about. I'm not going to spoil anything. I'll just leave it there. But I've got some plans for this dungeon as the player progresses through it. And so they'll come into this room, and they'll be greeted with this kind of save box. So we could put things in here, and then we'll always have those things if we die. Because if we die, we're going to come back to that spot we were just in right there. And so we're in this big room. It's creepy. We only seem to have one option, which is to go into this dark space. And when the player gets right about here, a command block triggers and brings them currently to this neon green carpet. It will ultimately bring them into that black room right there, and they'll go into this dungeon. I'll give you just a super quick sneaky peek. So they'll be teleported into this room. But we're not going to talk about that room today. We're not even going to be talking about that or anything. We're just going to be talking about, like, how do you even get started with something like this? So command blocks are something new to this channel. I've not really discussed this before, and I had a ton of fun learning and figuring this stuff out myself, and I wanted to share this with the community. And so we're going to talk first about some basic things you need to do. Number one is get yourself a command block so that you can actually make commands. So let's talk about how we actually do that. So we can use the directional pad on our controller and click to the right to bring up this menu. We alternatively, I believe, can press T on the keyboard, and it will bring up this command window on here. And all we need to do is put this piece of code into our line here. So here is what we're going to type into our command prompt window. It says /give, and then it's quoted Jedi PJ command_block. You would not put Jedi PJ. You would put your player name inside of there. But that's my player name, and then we will hit enter, and we would get a command block. Why didn't that work? Well, I'll tell you why it didn't work. It actually did work. I had a command block in my inventory. So just to show you, though, let's go ahead. Let's get rid of this. And also, too, you're not going to be doing this in survival. So you'll want to make sure you're actually in creative mode for this. So let's go to settings. Let's go to creative, and let's do that whole thing again. Now, if you come back into this menu, you can click right on your keyboard or T on the controller. You could press up on your controller directional pad, and it will pull up the last command that you used. You can hit the start button, and boom, just like that, we get a command block. Great. So what do we do with this thing? Well, we put it down, and then when we left click on it, we can interact with this thing. And so most of the time when I'm going through this tutorial, I'm going to be talking about using a controller because predominantly my channel is based upon playing this on Xbox Series X. This will work on any version of Bedrock. You could be in Windows, you could be on Xbox. I'm jumping around doing this in different places anyways myself. So I'm playing on my Xbox certain times, I'm playing on my PC certain times. It'll work on mobile, that kind of thing. But yeah, this is how you get a command block. That's great. What's not great is using a command block and then seeing a bunch of text appear on your screen when you get a command block. So let me show you what that looks like. So if I come over here, let's see, I've got this teleport command block, right? If I step on it, it teleports me right behind the command block itself. Nothing appeared on my screen. You saw that, right? And I'm going to hit F8 on my keyboard right now, and you'll see that it'll move that position marker up to the top in the upper left corner. And I'm going to pull up my command prompt window here, and I'm going to type in this command. Okay, so this is the command that I have in my command prompt window, and it says /game rule send command feedback true. It was set to false. By default, it's set to true. So I'm going to set it as if I was in an actual new world. And so now you see all this text that's in the upper left corner, right? I'm going to wait till that goes away. And then I'm going to use this teleport again. And look, it says you've been teleported to blah, 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 blah. That's great. When you're playing by yourself and you're testing things out and you're trying to understand what's happening and all that stuff. That's not great when you have someone playing in your world. For instance, I'm going to send myself up here. I'm going to send myself up there in actually adventure mode, how my player would do it. Okay, so here I am, and now it says I've been teleported to this, right? Not great. I don't want my players to see that. Kind of takes you out of the moment. And let's say I'm in my dungeon, I'm looking around, and I come over here, and I go into the first room. It's going to say that again. So we don't want that. So before we even start doing anything with command blocks, we'll go ahead and pick these two guys up. We're going to disable that. So let's go back. We're going to press right on our directional pad. We're going to press up. And we're going to click A and use our X button to erase the word true. But I'm actually going to use my keyboard because it's a little faster. We'll put the word false in there. We'll hit enter. And now we won't get any of those commands anymore. So we can go back into creative, run ourselves over here, use our little teleporter to test, and no commands, nothing, which is exactly what we want. And so we have a command block. We have it to where we can turn the notifications on and off. When you start making repeating commands, if you don't turn that off, your screen is going to be flooded with commands everywhere. So in general, you kind of just want that off because it will be annoying. It is good for debugging. Sometimes you're trying to figure out like what happened, what went wrong. That can kind of help you out. And so I don't want to do too much in these videos. I think we can kind of get to a stopping point real shortly here. We talked about getting a command block. We talked about disabling this prompts, but I want to talk about probably the first thing you're going to want to do, which is build your first little room, right? Well, I didn't just build this room. I decorated the inside, but I used a command to actually build the structure for me. And so single commands can either be executed by a command block or they can just be done right here in the terminal window. So I'm going to refer to this as the terminal window, command window, whatever you want to say here. As a Mac OS scripter myself, I say terminal a lot just because that's the app I use a lot. But we're going to put a command in here and it's going to create a blank room for us. So let's talk about doing that. Okay, so there was a recent update and some of the syntax changed for this fill command, but basically this is all you want to do right here. So we're going to change the word air to stone for this example. And there are ways where you can pick like particular types of stone and things like that, but we're just going to say regular stone. And so what this will do is it will spawn a huge room like this that is hollow. And then you can come in here and you can decorate this however you would like. And that's effectively what I did over there. If this gets like in the wrong position, you can kind of bust out the corner, press right on the directional pad, enter into the field, press up on the directional pad, and replace the word stone with air, which is what I was just testing a minute ago. And you'll see that it will basically delete it for you. So there we go. All right, and then I'm going to take that guy out because I was just using that as a filler. So that is how you can get your like initial block set up, and then you can start decorating. The only other thing I want to cover in this video before it gets crazy long and really, really complicated is how to set your spawn point. So right now, if I go into adventure mode, which is what your players will be playing in, if I come over here, and let's say I jump up on this guy. You know what? It'll probably be faster if I just swim in this lava. You're going to see that my world spawn is here. Well, how is that? How is a world spawn up in the air? Well, it's because I actually set the world spawn, and you can set your own world spawn too. So, for one, you're going to want your coordinates, right? So just pick a spot where you want your world spawn to be. Like we could say maybe right here or something like that. And if you're not seeing your coordinates, just so you know, you can go into settings and you can go to game and look in the preference and there's show coordinates. You could toggle this off and on, but that's how you can see your coordinates, right? So we need to get ourselves back into creative here. And then we're going to use one more simple command to set our world spawn. Okay, that simple command is just this. And you can see the syntax is right there. So it's world spawn. And then you'll just put a space, and then you'll enter into your brackets what you want that world spawn to be. If you leave it blank, I believe it just sets it to wherever you're standing. But you can, and you most likely will want to specify, you know, whatever that is. So maybe we were at 12 by minus, well, we wouldn't be minus, but let's say we were 0, and the last one was like minus 13. Now, I'm not going to actually do this because I don't want to mess up my world spawn, but you could hit enter, and that will change your world spawn, which, again, is super useful because you're going to want your players to go to a particular space. And so that's what we're going to call this first episode. We're going to be looking more and more at the entry level and kind of what we can do to kind of add some excitement. Like, for instance, maybe when they walk in, you know, like it tells them a little something like, you know, time to run or something. I don't know. We'll look at that in the next one. But guys, hopefully you enjoyed this episode, and I can't wait to see you on the next episode of Mining Positivity. Bye, friends.